the same year in December. They were collecting different computers, gaming consoles and so on, and decided to create the museum just like California's computer museum. Also, they started courses for people who are older than 40 years to guide them how to use the computer. So the exhibition starts with a stand about Ada Lovelace and the memory of Charles Babbage. Charles Babbage was an inventor of 19th century who decided to create a quite large machine for navigation countings. It was called difference engine. It even wasn't his idea, it was started from government. He tried to do it, but absolutely haven't undone this. 3 meters at height, 4.5 meters at width. While creating the difference engine, he decided to make something better called analytical engine, like a real computer which could be reprogrammed for any tasks. The length should be 150 meters, and as for width, 27 meters. And it could work with steam like trains from that time. Interesting point that he hadn't made neither difference or analytical engine. Only the part of difference engine was earned by Charles Babbage, and at the presentation was Ada Lovelace, daughter of famous poet Lord Byron. She decided to help Babbage and has written the program for difference engine. That program is usually considered as the first one, so Ada Lovelace is considered as the first programmer ever. Also, she has left the work called Notes, where she told that any information could be stored as binary code, and also the computers won't ever have artificial intelligence. They could only do what people ask them to do. Then, in the 40th and 40th years of previous century, Konrad Zuse made his computers called Z1, Z2, and Z the third one, in the name of him, because Zuse, as you can see, is written with Z. Konrad made those mechanical computers not to work with such mechanical calculators called arithmometers. For example, you can see the German Triumphwaiter, and so tell me any number before 1000, so I could show you how it works.
21.
What, 21?
21.
21. And so we rotate here to sum up. Here is the result. Summing up in this way, and in the other, minusing. Also, we have bell here, which could inform us that we shouldn't subtract anything from 0. Also, we can multiply and divide here. For example, tell me how much times we will multiply 21.
5.
5 times. So we have simply to do 5 rotations. But in case we'd like to make anything more interesting than 5, like 125, we have to get on the next number and make 2 rotations for 20. And the same deed for 100, 1 rotation. And here's the result, 2625. And those years to make everything go back to 0. And this year here. There were it was quite large amount of different arithmometers. For example, this German Triumphwaiter, Soviet Felix in the names of Felix Dzerzhinsky. Also the portable arithmometer called Kurta, produced from 1948 up to 1970. And also electromechanical arithmometers where you didn't have to rotate that handle. So the next point is ENIAC. ENIAC was made by Americans from 1943 up to 1945. They wanted to use it in times of World War II, but it was ended up too late in 1946. But instead of launching, while launching in 1946, it worked almost for a decade, up to 1955. The team consisted of 6 women who were led by the 7 women who has written different sub-programs for that computer, like pre-programming language for that computer. I haven't spoken, for example, that Konrad Zuse have made the first programming language ever. It was called Plan Calcul, but interesting point, it wasn't used ever. For example, the first compilator for that programming language was written only in the year 2000 in Berlin. And I have heard some of you have spoken about the German coding machine, I mean the Enigma. Enigma was decrypted by Alan Turing. Alan Turing, a young mathematician from Great Britain, and also maybe some of you have seen quite interesting movie called The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch, known for Sherlock and for Doctor Strange. Alan Turing is widely known for Turing test, which could only artificial intelligence pass. In case you have such a feeling that your colleague is a real, not the artificial, like a real intelligent human being when you speak with him in chat, for example, but this is an artificial intelligence, then the test is passed. For example, you may have seen the movie called Ex Machina about the other artificial intelligence and the Turing test with her. Also the Soviet computers. First of them was made by those guys. Sergei Lebedev from Moscow. He has driven to Kiev to create the MSM. In Russian it's like малая электронная счетная машина, small electrical counting machine. One interesting point that the government has given the flat for Lebedev, so he drive to Kiev because he didn't want to do that work. Also, Viktor Glushkov. In Kiev we have the Ave in the name of Glushkov, and also we have the street in the name of Lebedev. And interesting point that nevertheless the street is quite small and not so much people live there, but that street is placed where the computer was based, in buildings of church in Feofania. And also Boris Malinovsky, the student, who has written this book. As I have spoken, the MESM. MESM was the smallest computer at that time, the second in speed after the ENIAC, and it was the first in continental Europe. When Lebedev ended up the work in 1950, he went back to Moscow and made their BESM, like large, big electrical counting machine. And as for Glushkov, he was working on Kiev computer, quoting the name of the city where he worked. As for Lebedev and his BESM, BESM was like the fastest Soviet computer without taking any ideas from Western computers, I mean American mainly. BESM the sixth was just fast as the first supercomputer made by Seymour Cray called CDC 6600. It could make 1 million calculations per second. For example, ENIAC at his best could do 5,000 calculations per second, and he was possible to do it in 1955. So, as for Soviet computers which were copied. Interesting point that government decided to take some ideas from American computers. They have changed their standards. For example, they have absolutely copied the computer called IBM 306. I recommend you to stand here. As for 360, you can see it on this photo or in the movie called THX 1138, made by George Lucas, who later has filmed the Star Wars. As for 360, it was quite interesting because it was used in times of Vietnam War during Igloo White operation, and also when the Apollo 11 was launched, the trajectory of that spaceship was calculated on IBM 360. 360 was copied in a series of Soviet computers called ES, Единая система, one system, like OS in English. OS used such magnetic tapes. One tape could store about 20-25 megabytes of information. Not so much nowadays, like small video from YouTube, but for example, at that time, the first hard drive ever made by IBM in 1956 could be a few meters at height, 13 tons at weight, and could store 5 megabytes. You can easily find photos on the web to see, because workers took that from the plane. It had to be transported with quite large plane because of its weight and size. And for the interest, you can try to take the hard drive for 1.7 gigabytes. Who would like to try? A bit heavier than your iPhones, I guess. Also, there were magnetic sticks. On post-Soviet territories, they were used as antennas to catch TV signals. And the floaties, or diskettes. The first of them were made in 1971 by the same company, IBM. They could store about 80 kilobytes of information, and they were read-only. You couldn't write them. They had sort of evolution, so they could store 250 kilobytes and could be rewrite. Then, in 1972, 1 year later, there were made the first 5-inch floppies, because those were 8-inch floppies, and here are the 5-inch. From 110 kilobytes up to 720 kilobytes. Also with double density like our ones for 1 megabyte and 200 kilobytes. You could rewrite them within this window, which you could cut off with scissors or special equipment. Also there were the collections of stickers to save this diskette from rewriting. 5-inch floppies were used in personal computer. And so I have a question. How do you think when the first personal computer was invented?
70s, 1970s?
The second part or the first part of 70s?
Second.
First part. What's the part?
Second.
There is no right answer. For example, the first product considered as the personal computer, because it was written in the manual in such a way, Programmer 101 from Olivetti company, Italian company which was known for typewriters. Programmer 101 had 240 bytes of RAM, and the price was about $90,000. Then in 1970, data point 2200, which was considered as the integral counting machine, but some people think it was personal computer, me too, had from 1 kilobyte up to 16 kilobytes of RAM, the price from $5,000 up to $14,000. It had monitor and the keyboard. It was cool for that time, because Programmer 101 was like a large calculator with small term printer. Also in 1971 was made the first computer by John Blankenbaker. It was called Canva 1. The only personal computer before 1973 which had price less than a few $1,000s. Only 750, but it had problem. Just the same as a bit later models of constructors to make computers at home, like Altair 8800. The price was from $430 when you had to make it by your own, or absolutely everything is inbuilt for $600. The problem was it hadn't any display, only the lamps which could beam in a special way. It's like your program. It shows your program in binary code. And instead of the keyboard, different tumblers here. Altair and such models like Chromemca Z1 and so on ended up in producing in the second part of 70s. Interesting point that in 1973 it was created the first personal computer with microprocessor. Microprocessors were invented as a technology for F-14, the warplane, and it was absolutely secret up to the first part of 90, up to the war in Persian Gulf. But Intel in 1971 had made the first commercial microprocessor called Intel 4004. It was used in calculators, but the later models like Intel 8008, also Motorola 6800, Zillow Z80, they were used in personal computers. So the price was not so high, and also they were popularized due to that, because the lower price, the more people can buy it. For example, in 1977, it was like Trinity of that year. For example, Apple, the second one, was in the Trinity. The prices from $1,300 up to $2,500. We have a bit later upgraded model called Apple II the Plus. Its price was $1,200. Three variations: Plus for America, Euro Plus for European market, and J Plus for Asian market. Also in the Trinity of 1977 was TRS-80, called in the name of company which produced it, Tandy, and where they were shopped, Radio Shack, TRS, Tandy Radio Shack. TRS-80, the model first, had the keyboard and the monitor which plugged one to each other. We have a bit later model, an upgraded TRS-80 model the third, with keyboard, monitor, and two floppy drives inbuilt. Also, as you can see, it was shown to Ronald Reagan in one of schools, and it was quite interesting commercial with Isaac Asimov, famous science fiction writer. In 70s also there were not only the personal computers but gaming consoles. For example, the first one was Magnavox Odyssey from 1972, made by Magnavox company, which produced TVs and radios before that. For example, I have seen a few days ago, it's not the commercial, quite interesting movie, Ford versus Ferrari. And it was Magnavox radio in one of moment. So Magnavox made that first gaming console with the covers for TV, which could make game not the black and white but colorful. And also they have made the first pistol controller, but it was quite large. We have a bit later model, Magnavox Odyssey 300 from 1976, with 3 inbuilt games and 3 levels for each game. Also, here is Hanimex 666 ST. the smaller controller plugged to the larger one, and the larger one is plugged into TV. Here are 4 games, also inbuilt: football, pilot, handball, and tennis. They are all the different variations of Pong. Pong is one of the first computer games. For example, here is one of variations, the pilot, where instead of the second player, you have the wall from which you have to beat your ball and not to miss it. Also black and white, instead of Sandra 9012, made by Germans in 1977. It had 6 inbuilt games, and as you can see, this is color video game. 2 games for pistol and 4 for this controller, which was plugged with jack 3.5. You may have recognized it because usually nowadays the headphones are plugged with it. It was invented in the late 50s, but the popularity it got in 1979 with the announcement of Sony Walkman, the original, one of the first portable cassette drives. You can see the original Sony Walkman in the movie The Guardians of Galaxy. One of guys used to listen music from that all the time. But the inbuilt games is problem. Why do you think so? Why is it problem that the games were inbuilt here? I'm a child from 70s, and I get bored with all those games I have here. What do I have to do with my gaming console?
Return it?
Okay, and then?
Get a new one.
Yes. And so, what is the solution in case I'm an engineer from Atari, for example?
Make your own?
Own console, but I mean for market, not for me only. Maybe you have an idea? No? Cartridges. Cartridges. Now you can not only buy the gaming console, but you can buy the exact game which you'd like. Because here you have to spend $70. Here from $5 to $15. And when you buy the gaming console, you may want one game from all 4, for example. And you spend not only more money, but money for that you don't need. Here you buy exactly what you like. Atari 460. And as for cartridges, they were invented in 1976 in Atari. Atari 400 Candy, the gaming console and computer 2-in-1. The slot for cartridges as a gaming console. And as for computer, it has QWERTY keyboard and cassette drive, because the first personal computers used to run programs from cassettes. Then floppies appeared, but for the first time floppy drives were not as cheap. For example, some of them could have the same price as the computer. That's why some people used to still continue to use cassette drives. And in Soviet Union, for example, mainly the programs were run by cassettes. Osborne-Dixon, the portable computer model, the first one had weight about 12 kilos, and the fourth in front of you, 8.5 kilo. You can close the keyboard in such a way, and here is the handle. So it was called luggable computers in the name of luggage. But interesting point that women used to take them like quite small and easy bags. As for Osborne-Dixon, it was portable but not autonomous. You had to take it from one source of electricity to each other, from rosette to rosette. Instead of Sharp PC 4501. Laptops used new technology called LCD. So as for LCD, it has to use much less electricity than such a CRT, like a small TV in your computer. 4501 has inbuilt batteries which could make him work during 3 hours, and as for sleeping mode, 6 hours. I don't know if you have heard about Время Стекло, but in one of their music videos you can see the moment when Nadia Dorofeeva takes this laptop. And as for Pong game, also there is band called SBPC, самое большое простое число. Нельзя сказать короче. The moment with Brown Box. Brown Box, it was like the prototype for Magnavox Odyssey gaming console. ZX Spectrum. Really quite popular gaming computer, but Clive Sinclair, the inventor of Spectrum, didn't want people to use it for games. He wanted to use Spectrum as an educational computer for British and American schools. The BBC had an idea to give money for that company that could make the computer which could be good for studying. But Clive Sinclair didn't get that money. Instead of Acorn. Acorn, who made Micro, later called BBC Micro, because they have got those money. Also, you can see the movie called Microman with Martin Freeman, known for The Lord of Rings, I mean the part Bilbo movie, and the Sherlock series also. Microman is a story about Acorn Company and Chris Curry, the CEO, and Sinclair Research, the CEO, Clive Sinclair. But ZX Spectrum was much more popular. 1.2 million copies instead of 5 million copies sold. Also, in different countries, people used to copy Spectrum at home. They bought such printed circuit boards, different electronics like microprocessors, programmed them, plugged in, and made own Spectrum computers, using the plans how to do this in different electronic magazines. Copies of Spectrums were in Argentina, Brazil, also in Soviet Union. For example, this is the printed circuit board of Leningrad 48. But nevertheless, not only at homes they were made. For example, Soviets had copy which was made on factories. I mean Robic. They look like absolutely different computers, black and white, but they're all the same inside. Robic had the program compatibility with ZX Spectrum. So you can take the cassette from Spectrum and run it on Robic, and everything will be okay. It was produced in Cherkasy, one of the Ukrainian cities, on a Rotor factory. Nowadays, Rotor produces machine autos. Also, MS-0511 Electronica, which was made in Zelenograd. Zelenograd is usually called a Silicon Valley of Soviet Union, and I highly recommend you to see the movie called The Pirates of Silicon Valley from 1999, about the young times of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. And also you can see here the keyboard. The Soviet keyboard isn't such standard because the Kyrillics are above the Latin, and also it's not the QWERTY but Itsukin. This keyboard is like mnemonical because the letters of Cyrillic and Latin sound all the same one. Y, C, C, U, K, K, and so on. But some letters couldn't be copied because in Russian and Ukrainian we have letters which have two sounds at the same time. One letter, two sounds. Electronica Corvette. Corvette has the absolutely opposite story to Spectrum. Spectrum was a gaming computer, home personal computer, which had to be for studying. And as for Corvette, it was used in Ukrainian schools up to year 2003, but the government wanted to start selling them. But they didn't do this because they broke up of Soviet Union. PC Lviv, model the first one. It was produced from 1986. It even had TV commercial because at that time Gorbachev started his perestroika. And as for commercial, there were actors from highly known Soviet series Yeralash. Also there were model the second one and the third one. But the third one wasn't produced because of the same reason, the broke up of Soviet Union. PC, the third Lviv, was shown to publicity in September of 1991. Also the Commodore 64, quite popular computer from the 80s. It was even in Guinness World Record book because more than 15 million copies were sold. The price was lower than $600, I mean $595. And as for RAM, it had 64 kilobytes, quite a lot for that time. For example, Spectrum had about 48 kilobytes of RAM. As for Commodore 64, you can mention the command line of this computer while gaming, while playing the Grand Theft Auto Vice City in the start. Yes. Also in the Smallville series, the history of Superman in episode 9 from the season 11. Commodore 64 wasn't the first success of Commodore company because 1 year later they have announced the VIC-20, the first computer which was sold in the amount more than 1 million copies. And I have spoken about the Trinity from 1977. It was Apple the second one, TRS-80, and also PET-1 from Commodore company, here under the approach word. We don't have PET-1 from Commodore here, but in Kharkiv Museum we have. And I have seen quite interesting announcement on the Facebook, the smartphone called PET-1 with Commodore logo, but they have absolutely, they only have bought the rights for using that logo, nothing special. No connection with the computer. Atari 2600. It was produced from 1977 with price $199. But later, during the company Atari is back, as Atari 2600 Junior for only $50. So I mean 4 times cheaper. But it could run all the same cartridges. For example, that gaming console had Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, where Mario for the first time appeared, Space Invaders, Breakout, River Raid, and a lot of other games. In the cartoon called Wall-E, Wall-E used to play on 2600 with Eva, and the game was Pong. Also in the movie, the first player to get ready, the last task was on 2600. And recommend you to see the movie called Atari: The End of the Game, and you'd know why Atari has buried all their cartridges under the sand for more than 30 years. And then got it out and started selling with prices more than $600. And how all is that connected with Katy Perry's song called Extraterrestrial? Atari portfolio. The first portable IBM PC compatible computer. The year 1989. The price only $320 for everything that it was able to do. As for operation system, DOS 2.11, just the same as here on this laptop. You can feel the difference in sizes. Also the memory, 256 kilobytes, and as for RAM, 128 kilobytes. Also the slot for plugging special cable and using portfolio as a keyboard for anything another. You may have seen it in the movie, the best-sold movie from 1999, Terminator, the second one. Young John Connor used to hack ATM with this computer. Also, you could buy the memory card for 64 kilobytes. Dendy. Everybody likes Dendy. Dendy. It was quite known TV program in Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, and so on, called Dendy Новая реальность, Dendy the New Reality by Sergei Suponev. Sergei Suponev was known for different TV programs for children, like Marathon with the 15, Start Time, and so on. Dendy was the product of a Russian company called Stifler, but it wasn't original. Stifler used to take the Famicom from Nintendo and copy it. We have the twin Famicom, the red one here. But nevertheless, Dendy was a copy of Famicom, and it was one console called Subor, absolutely the same black one. It was copied from Dendy. As for copying gaming consoles, for example, children from Soviet Union have seen Atari 2600 as a gaming console called Rambo with inbuilt games. And as for PlayStation, it had a clone called Polystation with slot for cartridges in this part. And I have spoken about the floppies. 8-inch floppies, 5-inch, and the last generation 3-inch floppies or 3.5-inch floppies. From 720 kilobytes up to 1 megabyte, 440 kilobytes, so less than 1.5 megabytes. But also there were such zip floppies from 100 megabytes up to 250 megabytes. Also there were magneto-optical discs, which look all the same, but absolutely different technology. You can see here and here. Here is the disc, and here is simply like the tape. And as for magneto-opticals, you can mention that the density, quite large density, it could store 230 megabytes. Such magneto-optical disc appeared in the movie The Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise, who has driven to Kiev not so long time ago. Also the Toshiba Libretto from 1996. It could run Windows 95. Our one has Windows 98, and it has no problems with it. The special adapter here to run mouse with COM port, also VGA to run external monitor, and such LPT port for printer. Also IRDA, which was used in old mobile phones to send, for example, pictures one to each other before the Bluetooth. Инфракрасный, это также было понятие, да. Ну, потому что, кстати, как-то вот загранично, я не знаю, почему-то в постсоветском... Вот в Украине, в России и Беларуси как-то использовали инфракрасный, а за границей почему-то нет. Непонятно. PC cards, like special modems for Wi-Fi, fax, and so on. Also, they were used as memory cards and so on. It has inbuilt mouse here and two buttons, like left and right here. The second part of 9, iMac G31. The first computer with USB. USB was invented in 1996, and for the first time it was used in 1998 in this computer. Keyboard and mouse plugged with USB. 2 inbuilt speakers, inbuilt CD-ROM, and inbuilt display. Everything what was inside you could see from that part because of the plastic. And also the logo has changed. The logo has changed because Steve Jobs got back to Apple and made rebranding, like changing the logo and all the other information about the company. Before this model, the logo was in colors of rainbow. You can see the story of producing iMac G31 in movies with Ashton Kutcher from year 2014 and with Michael Fassbender from year 2015. And as for iMac G31, it also appeared in movie Men in Black, the second part, in the moment when they used to restore the memory of Agent K. iBook G31, the clamshell. It appeared in different movies, for example, Legally Blonde, also in Ariana Grande's music video Thank You Next, also in iCarly series with logo covered with piece of paper where not the apple was drawn. Also Friends series and Sex and the City series. It was given to Carrie Bradshaw in blue color. And as for movies, Silicon Graphics, known for their supercomputers, but also they had such graphical stations like this one, O2. Prices from $4,500 up to $11,000. Also, it was Model Indy. We don't have it here, but in Kharkiv Museum. Models Indy were used while creating special effects for movies like Terminator, Jurassic Park, Babylon 5 series, and so on. So, I mean, the Hollywood of 90s was made mainly by Silicon Graphics computers. And also the beepers. To send a message to beeper, you had to call the operator, tell the number of the beeper, and then your message. And the operator sent it, or didn't send in case he didn't want or had not to do that. Such Nokia Finder text, for example, appeared in wide-known Soviet cartoon "Ну погоди" in the episode to the 25th anniversary of that cartoon. It was Rabbit had such a beeper.
Это пейджер на русском, да?
Pager, да, pager. PlayStation, the second one, the most sold gaming console ever. More than what?
Seriously?
Да. More than 159 million copies. From on the 3rd on the 3rd of December, it will be the anniversary of PlayStation, the first one. It is also one of the most sold gaming consoles ever. More than 100.5 million copies were sold. It was one of the first gaming consoles from the 5th generation. And as for PlayStation, the second one, as I have spoken, more than 159 million copies. From year 2000 up to year 2013. The last game was announced in year 2014. It was called FIFA. Also, there were GTA from 3rd up to San Andreas, Need for Speed Underground, Need for Speed Undercover, God of War, the first and the second parts, and so on. More than 3,000 games were announced for this gaming console. The first place, more than 159 million copies, And as for the second place, Nintendo DS, the most sold portable gaming console. You may have seen it in House series, MD House series. He used to play such Nintendo DS, but in another color. Nintendo DS, more than 154 million copies were sold from year 2004. It has such a slot for memory card, stylus for this sensor, and also the slot for backward compatibility with the Game Boy Advance. Panasonic Toughbook Kiev 28 with such a keyboard which has no problems with, which is waterproof and so on. Also, you could easily take out the hard drive and unbeatable plastic. You can try the weight, 4.5 kilos. I guess with hard drive it could be 5 kilos. It appeared in movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and also «Лысый Кто-нибудь в курсе, как «Лысый нянь» на английском фильме?
Bold.
Нет, ну я тоже могу перевести, но просто мне кажется, он «Bold Nanny» называется, да? Он так и перевели. Нет, это который этот...
Вин Дизель?
Ну да, Вин Дизель, да, он просто...
Bold Nanny.
Тоже такой компьютер? Тоже был такой компьютер?
Да, да.
Ну, мистер и миссис Смит, это классика.
Ну да.
Pacifier.
Точно, да. Вот там он напишет. Rather we thought. I guess you have heard about the announcement of new model with the monitor which could be closed in such a way. Yes. $1,500. The price. I guess it's crazy price for the telephone, but nevertheless. This is the most sold Motorola mobile phone ever. And a piece of history. In 50s, Motorola has invented the first beeper. Then, in 73rd, they have made the first mobile phone called Dynacheck 3000. And 30 years later, in 2004, more than 130 million copies of this mobile phone. But it's not the most sold mobile phone ever. The first place is taken by Nokia 1100, more than 250 million copies. The second place by iPhone 6 and 6S, more than 220 million copies. So the iPhone. The first iPhone called 2G because of the mobile standard. The 1G was used in phones which were inbuilt, which were used in cars as inbuilt in the late 80s. And so the 2G as a mobile standard here. It couldn't use 3G, what is interesting. The next model was able for this. As for memory, from 4 to 8 gigabytes. This mobile phone was first with multi-touch, because before that time you had to use stylus. Here is your finger, is your stylus, and this is multi-touch, not single or dual touch, but multi-touch for 5 touches in the same time. For the first time, Instagram was only for iPhone. It's nowadays you can use anything to get on Instagram. And HTC Dream, the first mobile phone with Android. It has inbuilt keyboard and it didn't have any sensor keyboard for the first time up to version of Android 1.5. Also such a wheel, the trackball like a mouse on old laptops. But you could easily use the sensor for the same. And so we have started with year 2017 as the foundation of museum. We end up with the same year because Jibo, the social robot, appeared on the cover of Time magazine. He was made by Cynthia Breezel, the worker of MIT, who has made different social robots from the end of 90s. Hey Jibo, who is Cynthia Breezel?
Of course I know Cynthia. She founded me.
Hey Jibo, make pizza. Hey Jibo, can you jump?
Well, I can ski jump.
Hey Jibo, what time is it now?
It's 10:55.
Hey Jibo, what's the weather today?
Let's look at the weather. Looks like it's going to be mostly cloudy throughout the day. Today's high is 37 and the low is 27.
Hey Jibo, who is Steve Jobs?
Stephen Paul Jobs was an American business magnate, industrial designer, investor, and media proprietor.
Hey Jibo, what is personal computer?
A personal computer is a multi-purpose computer whose size, capabilities, and price make it feasible for individual use.
Hey Jibo, show me a dog.
Woof woof.
Hey Jibo, are there any monsters here?
Not even a bit of a monster in here.
Hey Jibo, what's your favorite dance?
This one is really fun.
Hey Jibo, play guitar. So this is the end of tour. In case you have any questions, you may ask.
How much?
$900.
Where can I buy this?
I take it.
Read about Jibo because they have ended up their work and due to servers and the problem with prices. People didn't buy Jibos enough because they are funny but not useful. As a smart speakers, for example, like Google Home Mini or Amazon Tab, which has prices from $25 up to $150 and so on. We'll be glad to have comments on TripAdvisor because we're on the second position in Kiev among 516 each other.